Louise Bretland-Treharne. My naked authenticity explored and shared, respectfully celebrating self and others. PAs of plenty, Sandra and Debbie. Hubby Carlos, oh, let's play. Debbie's inquiries meets with Eleanor Shaw's Ffwrnes Fach doors being welcomely opened. So many people speaking up, ease of silence allowed, or anything in between. Several months later, and I have not been banned. Sandra and I enter the Nurture Centre Carmarthen to experience the Cancer Cafe. Eileen is Shaw and
My name's Louise Bretland-Treharne. I live in Carmarthenshire in Wales. I have a rare brain condition under the umbrella term of ataxia, but I'm a passionate woman about the arts and the clinical and the creative, joining hands so that I can connect with my community, so that I can connect with my dogs, the cats, a stranger in the street, or engage using my voice. And I would say I'm nothing and everything, and that's how I see life. It's just, that's how I tick. I'm 62 years of age. I live in Wales, but most of my working life was in England. I trained as a neurology nurse in Oxford and Wimbledon. So I've gone from a brain-trained nurse to a person with a changed brain. So I'm a brain patient. But I talk a lot about see the person first and always see disabilities with the abilities. I believe in polarities and bringing things, connecting in the middle. I came back to Wales in 1990 because my father was given a diagnosis of cancer, but he didn't have cancer in the end. But I stayed in Wales and actually got unwell, mentally unwell myself in 92. And that's another story in itself. It turns out I was trapped in the psychiatric system. I was working in that system because there's no neurology services locally for me to use my specialist nurse training in neurosciences. And I became a psychiatric patient myself and got stuck in the system. And as I said, that is a whole huge story, which I do talk about and how it happened, because I have a rare brain condition called ataxia, which I received help from London and Wales. So my journey really, and I ended up having day hospice support back in probably 2014-15, having been stuck in the psychiatric system over 20 years. Then the brain scan showed there's changes in the brain, and the journey continues with various neurological conditions and a rare disease patient. But what matters more than that is what I've derived through the arts, because I've always loved singing. I trained as a classical singer, didn't fulfill a career in that because I had other needs that needed prioritizing. So I would say I always talk about my writing, my singing being my extra essential organ for thriving. It goes beyond surviving, it's thriving because I'm being me. And when I was in the hospice, because my brain had changed and later I developed womb cancer, I actually was offered help with a creative writing practitioner for therapeutic purposes. She has a master's in that field. And she helped me write my memoir during my time in the hospice. And I recognized how the art was what actually sustained me. even kept me alive. I would go as far as saying it kept me alive through the darkest times. And so I've done a lot through the arts. And I would say therapeutic writing and everyday writing and being the person. To me, art is everything, from washing a mug at the sink to creating a poem or writing a song, a lyric for a song. And I'm at a stage now where I'm bringing things together. I don't like often I feel things like the new normal has become almost commercialized, and I really don't like that term, or breakdown is breakthrough. And with all of that over several years, I'm thinking, okay, and from another platform I use is Write for Word, and they do a lot of open mic type work. And what I asked one of the directors of Write for Word, if people couldn't see me physically, because if I walk to a mic, it's obvious I need assistance because of the disability. If I wasn't shown, people didn't know anything about me or my history, they just heard a voice reading a poem, would my disability be apparent? And he said, that's an interesting question, because at first he said, well, yes, it's obvious, because when you walk, you need the assistance. I said, yeah, but if I'm not visible on screen, would people still know I had a disability? And he said, no. I said, that's interesting, because when I walk in front of an audience to the mic, in the past more than the current, people who didn't know me very well, I'd say, oh, isn't that inspiring? Isn't she brave? Isn't she courageous? Just for walking to a mic and reading a poem. So automatically, I'm thinking, okay, are they seeing the disability more than my capacity, like anyone else who hasn't got a disability? So I'm thinking people think that's lovely to say, oh, isn't she lovely? Oh, isn't she inspiring? And I'm thinking, no, it's difficult to walk to the mic. Yes, I'd have to overcome a lot of blocks to even be allowed or invited into the room. And to me, that's nothing to do with the disabilities, the human in me. It's the connective overdrive of the arts, where the art and being with other people, relearning communication skills is my driving force more than the disability. So the courage is in connecting with myself and connecting with others. And People Speak Up, which is a health and well-being hub. And I've met a lot of fellow members in the group with various health conditions or loneliness, some lack where they needed to go to a group to connect. And through People Speak Up and meeting Eleanor Shaw, the director of People Speak Up, and meeting a lot of highly talented professional facilitators, I've continued year after year to thrive. And one of the first recordings with People Speak Up, I sent them about a 5-minute thank you message and naming the professional artist and what it meant to me. And then later I did a podcast which was titled Permission to be Human. Now, the arts has actually, with my own character strengths and talent, paved the way where I've been told I wouldn't be able to do something, where I thought, well, I'd been told that so many times in life. I love the arts. I love speaking. I love singing. The connection. So on that podcast, being called Permission to be Human, which was, I think that podcast on People Speak Up was created in 2020. And I'm thinking I'd recovered from cancer surgery the year before, so I'm still under surveillance. And when I was listening to that podcast recently, I'm thinking, wow, how much I've achieved. Through the charities of the arts, I've got a published book through the help of Rufus Mufasa, Write for Word, the other second director, Write for Word, Mel Perry's my director, who's also done therapeutic work with myself and my husband, and me alone with another practitioner, and recognizing how I'm learning my unique ways of, yes, I'm an activist voice. Yes, I talk as a previous brain trained nurse to a brain person with a temporary title or an acquired title of patient, and recognizing actually how we're all born with some kind of mainly abilities with disabilities. Yes, there's levels. Some people can work full-time or part-time and function. Others can't for whatever reason. But thinking, why don't people tap in more to the abilities in a constructive, creative way? Let the disabled person talk about their abilities, but also the process of the disabilities, especially if it's life-changing and quite a shock. So I've used the arts as a therapeutic basis to process a shock. Suddenly I've been discharged from psychiatry, self-discharged, and supported by other medical doctors outside psychiatry. And then thinking I'm going to get my life back and then build up with charities, then go back to part-time work, only to discover in 2014 a brain MRI. There's a different journey ahead of me. And I'm thinking, okay, I need something stronger than the fear, own the fear. I've used the therapeutic aspect of writing. I've always been a creative. There's no human that would stay around where I tell a story when I'm a child. I'd tell a story to the cows, to a wildflower in the meadow. I've always been a storyteller. And so apart from the therapeutic level, I've noticed, because I did a paint and tell project with Bill Taylor Beals doing the artistic side, and the director of People Speak Up, Elena Shaw, being the professional storyteller. So Bill and Elena had this idea of storytelling, so paint and tell. And I remember thinking, I've never been any good at art. I've got all the ideas, but I haven't got the dexterity. But I thought, okay, I've seen Bill work on different projects and how he ticks. And I thought, I like that open-mindedness. I like the engagement he has with people participating in different artistic groups. I like his open-mindedness. I love the way he uses any aspect of vulnerability in an explorative, non-pretentious way. And I thought, that's how I tick. I don't need to pretend. And Elena Shaw, she's been instrumental in my journey. So in the paint and tell group, because my husband said, no, Louise, I don't think you're going to cope with that, because you've trained yourself. You're no good with anything that needs that sort of dexterity. And I had a chat with Elena and Bill, and they said, let's have a go. And what I found, yes, it was exhausting because of using a hands manipulation, new people in the room. But what I discovered, it actually, in a really fun way, a deep, connective way, put to rest being told in school the classic, you can't do math. But in this case, you can't do the art. And I thought, and a lot of people came up in the group, in the feedback sessions, about show, Bill, and the combined storytelling and the painting or the collage for me, which I've used on my book, Rustling Feathers, as the front cover, is actually, it gave me a good chance to explore what I can do. And what I can't do, I thought, well, I've always been creative. That's not been disabled. I've always loved people being authentic and being true and not apologising for their lack, but actually working with it. And hearing so many people delighted with what they're creating, losing their self-consciousness, oh, I can't draw, oh, that's no good. Connecting in a mature, almost organic way, and telling the story combined with the art, and later some music coming in. And that is what's held me. It's like a wave, really, of, if I have a crashing wave where I go under, I have this image through the art of coming back on the next wave, stronger and more determined, because I will have learned something. But what I'm also learning as time goes on, the pleasure, fun element. And Eleanor often jokes about I'm the naughty one. And there is that playfulness. I think the child within me is coming out, daring to make mistakes, daring to be vulnerable. But actually finding, even as a child, I used to have these deep and meaningful conversations with older women in the village or women in the family around the dancing flames of an open fire with, Mangi, my grandmother's flat cushions on the sofa, smelling of open pies. And the elderly women said, you're beyond your years, Louise. You just connect with conversations and storytelling around homely or out to the field, singing anything with the animals and the flowers in the field. And often I would connect with nature. And even at the weekend, I was in the Gower with my husband and our beautiful dog, Gwen, and thinking about everything. And I had this overpowering feeling of a love that's not wishy-washy. She says doesn't need overthinking. And I was thinking of all the people I've met through the arts, and even my song that Bill Taylor Beals recorded, Scared No More. But of course, we're all scared sometimes, and so am I. But the title, compared to the first podcast where people speak up, I created with Eleanor, Permission to be Human. I don't need permission to be human anymore.
Creative child with stories and songs but sadness, put out moon's light as sunshine lost its shine. Tears cried as beautiful voice not heard. Others please embrace a weeping heart. Dare I rebel against tormenting waves to raise again my vibrant voice? The victory is mine to claim once more. With a dance to ease my new farewell.
When I was a little girl with the older ladies in the family or the community village around me, I'd often used to communicate in a child language about wanting to feel comfortable enough in my own shoes. Obviously, as a child, I wouldn't have this language. But what I was trying to communicate as a child, I want to get comfortable enough and confident enough in my own shoes so that there's an energy and a way I can communicate that will allow other people to feel at ease with themselves. So we can work together, the connection, the communication. And I believe that's what's happening. The arts is actually through the poetry, through the singing, through the painting, through listening to other artists, and through people speak up, and people like Bill Taylor Beals or Duke Owl or Rufus Mufasa, professional artists themselves. I've been given opportunities to explore what I can do, can't do, where I can push safely. But the actual therapeutic element that I felt uncomfortable with, the clinical aspect of it, I feel I've befriended the clinical, the creative, and I'm in a far more positive, comfortable place because I don't, as the previous nurse, I'm happy talking about health conditions and disabilities. But I'm actually finding ways through the arts to read a poem that is nothing or talk about nothing related to disabilities or illnesses. You know, things like one of my poems in my book is called Blackbird, where I'm talking about because I'm thinking about labels and naming things and people's perceptions. And in that poem, I'm talking through a blackbird poem as if I'm talking to that blackbird as a human, and talking about apparently male blackbird is more beautiful than a female in voice and appearance. And I'm thinking about that analogy, and I'm talking about that process. And I'm talking about everything having curriculums, being labelled, and thinking back to a time when things weren't labelled or named, or, academia has a place, but not enough people will look at and listen to a blackbird today without naming, where's that blackbird? Bring in the information about the blackbird. So they're missing the moment, feeling the ground as they look at that blackbird, listen to the blackbird. And I think my poetry allows me to declutter a lot of the complications, partly my disability, but partly societal, community, disconnection. So I love the arts bringing communities back together and gaining confidence. And I love asking people, if I read something or if someone else reads something, if I give feedback to someone else, if I'm invited to do so and it's appropriate, I will actually give an example and back up why that mattered to me, why I liked it. And you can see people's body language change because it validates to them immediately. She's interested enough to give the feedback or ask questions. And she's actually giving an example of what she's seen or heard. And I think that's really important because you can see people light up and say, no, I'm not playing a part. I haven't manufactured anything. I'm not coming as a specialist or a qualified person. I'm a human being who loves connecting with other people, but got into a lost world because of my brain condition. And I want to pave the way through the art and get people. I want to ask people, what does the arts mean to you? Do you mean you have to go to the theatre, you've got to read a poem, listen to a song, or read a story or a book? Because I love how there's not enough time for people to be asked, what does the arts mean to you? Because you can have your dictionary definitions, or you can read a blog about someone's work. But to me, the art is everything. Everything. It's a whole of creation. It's from holding our dog Gwen, and yesterday, on Saturday, with my husband, he took a photograph of me holding Gwen. I'm feeling the land, and my eyes are shut. And my husband said that's the best photograph he's seen that he took this year. Because he said, if anyone wants a definition of love, that's it. Because the seaside is around. It's a beautiful place. And feeling the ground and feeling my puppy. I'm not overthinking. I'm in the moment. And that is pure bliss. That's all. They laugh when I say, even washing a mug is an artistic, creative journey for me. And people laugh. But when people want to know more, and I go into a dialogue about how can washing a mug be an art form? I said, well, it was before I had a disability, but since my disability, to actually get a cup. People know I've got ataxia and coriform movement, actually look quite nervous if I offer them a hot drink because I'm quite shaky and wobbly. And I use humour more appropriately because I've gained more confidence through the arts. But actually, for me to wash a mug is an achievement. I've had to relearn to do that. And what's helped me to make the rehabilitative, physical, overcoming the disability aspect or working with it is, as the same person, I have these disabilities. Thank God it's happened to me. I've trained in neuro previously. I've had a lot of knockbacks in life, as most people do. But what keeps me thriving is the arts, it's the creativity. So when I wash a mug, I'm creating stories in my head, but also learning to focus, to keep safe. And I remember in school asking a teacher, it was history actually, nothing to do with the art as such, but actually, yes, of course it is, because anything to do with humans is connective, is expressive. And I remember having a conversation with him, whether he thought teaching was a vocation or something different. Can anyone learn to be a teacher and do it well? And I've always been very inquisitive. Even as a young child, my mother used to say, I never met anyone like you, Louise. Where did you come from? Because I'd have questions that she couldn't answer, and a lot of adults around me. And even when I was having neuropsychology, a lot of artistic expression opportunities again, photographs and writing about the photographs and the meaning. And even the neuropsychologists used to say, wow, you ask questions that nobody else ever asked us, and we haven't even thought about it. And I have a frustration, I know it's developing within health systems and social care, how the arts helps staff who are feeling undervalued, underpaid, the effect and the trauma of COVID and being criticised when people haven't seen the overview, the whole story of why a certain member of staff can't deliver. And I was in an all Wales neurology awareness with staff recently, and I was talking to the staff about how I speak to staff and other patients. See the person in front of you, see into their eyes, see the soul. everyone says COVID within going for a simple blood test. You can see the pain, you can see the burnout. And for me, it's quite painful being a previous nurse and being who I've always been, caring not to know, a lot of people thinking, oh, flowery language and the word care. Oh no, flowery language, humour, used appropriately, creatively, is an expression. If you see the person in front of you and you relax and get out of your own way, which is storytelling, getting out of your own way, trusting, you will recognise in a very brief period of time the pain in the person in front of you, or they may be having a joyful day. But in hospital systems, I'm seeing the fear and the burnout in people. And when I gave my talk, because it involved staff within neurology and charities, paid roles within neurology, and what actually captivated the audience in a small survivor type story, but a patient voice story. I don't like the survivor jargon either. But in my person as a patient story, I spoke about the connection and how the fear needs to be respected as a collaborative, engaging process. And I talked again about the arts and how I'm trying to separate the conversations about systems and patients and disabilities and do normal work, because I want to encourage people to see my disability. And often the incongruence of looking well and maybe not feeling at all well. And that's a psychological resilience I've learned through the arts and neuropsychology too, because neuropsychology rehab involves a lot of artistic photography, singing, speaking, writing. Is how do I create a balance? I have no denial of problems with my disabilities. I don't want to overplay it and feel pressurized by systems to come out with words like the new normal, because it isn't a new normal, because what is disabled, the dis means there's something not right. There's a lack of ease, something's changed, the dynamic, isn't there? So I think it's really important to all disabilities, but finding the balance of also not being pressurized to over compensate by making some kind of glory conversation about the abilities. It's finding the authentic overview, the whole organic process of the disabilities and abilities holding hands. Because I've been aware of a missing gap between the clinical and the creative. And I visualize that missing gap as a bridge that's broken, it's gone. It's not working fully. I can hear people across the bridge, but there's no bridge. I can't cross over my lost world I speak of. So I started visualizing a rainbow, which became symbolic for NHS during COVID. That rainbow, in my visual sense, I see as that gap in the bridge to cross over. And I am actually beginning to reach more audiences who are thinking, and somehow I'm paving a way through the arts of people seeing the person and seeing the whole person, not bits, because systems takes away the whole person experience. I understand you have to go to specialists for a heart condition, brain condition, or bone problem. But when you've got chronic conditions and the brain being the hub of all systems, so you're going to have complications like I have a heart conduction problem, or I've got a thyroid problem. So there's different departments seeing different problems. And I sometimes get lost as if I've become dehumanized, not because of staff, they become dehumanized themselves. Because the system haven't respected or cared for the staff. But for me, as a patient, I can see it. And I want to hold energetically and create hope for staff and patients. And I would love people to connect more, collaborate more. Don't allow the systems to take away therapeutic people trust. And I'm delighted there's more art happening for staff, especially in this locality. And I've heard social workers and different professionals or supporting colleagues talk about how the arts help them. And I'm thinking, yeah, now that I get, because they're feeling heard, they're feeling validated. I did do art therapy when I was a psychiatric student nurse with an art therapist and patients. And I was in awe of how these patients had had straightforward talking therapies, drug treatments, hospital admission. But with the art therapists, once they got over the fear, they can't draw, they can't paint. It's not about that in therapeutic art. How the art would distract the self-consciousness once they got over the boundaries, self-imposed boundaries, and understood it's about connecting, communicating. They felt safe through art and exercise to talk about things they'd never talked to anyone about. And I was absolutely in awe of that power, but quite concerned because back in those days, where it was 91, when I was doing my placement in a day psychiatric hospital, how the consultant psychiatrists were poo-pooing that. And I thought, this is wrong, because I can see in art therapy what was happening was so powerful and people-orientated, but feeling a little bit frustrated and concerned, because if consultant psychiatrists aren't going to support their patients and poo-poo the staff in meetings, which I was involved in, and the patients, it's all going to break down. And the funding, I was afraid funding for art therapy would be minimised because the consultant in the clinical sense has more power. And the systems back then, I'm not quite sure how much things have changed. So again, it's the person and their art in a therapeutic sense. It depends who's around them, their environment, their opportunities. And I think it's so important because with people speak up, they want feedback, written, verbalized. Because obviously you have to validate what you're doing in order to get the funding for these charities. But actually how difficult it is for people to tap into asking the questions of themselves and other people, and how staff have to be careful not to influence what someone feeds back, but how essential it is, how a missed opportunity can be created because of that. And Narissa Joan, who is, she's a choir leader, People Sing Up, under the umbrella of People Speak Up. And I was one of the storytellers of Beyond the Border, international storytelling. And I'd actually been in her choir, but my cognition and the other neurological problems, I couldn't keep up with the choir. I loved it, and I had to give up. But then I was given an opportunity to work one-to-one and with another People Speak Up volunteer with Bill Taylor Beals, and actually wrote my own lyrics. Didn't have a clue how to do it, but I did it. I was dealing with a lot of grief and loss through Scared No More. But I learned so much from those just limited sessions through Bill of why I couldn't cope with the choir, what were the problems for me cognitively, physically. I didn't think I'd be able to achieve what I did with Bill. I did, more than I expected. And the words in that song, and it's what NHS or local authority staff or people in the arts say, I start with a problem, the processing throughout, they can sense people know me. I enjoy the process. I've acquired skills in that confidence, and it always ends with a positive conclusion. Or if it doesn't, the positivity is I haven't reached the satisfactory conclusion. I'm going to work on that, but I'm going to enjoy the process. And also what that enabled me to do in Beyond the Border International Storytelling Festival in one of the main tents. I was one of the storytellers. The choir behind, it just felt like that uplifting wave that facilitated my storytelling. But when I worked with Bill, it put something to rest. And I didn't expect to have the choir leader to be facilitating me in the now. So there's a classic example. I never thought I'd sing again, for pleasure, for learning. But where the rehabilitation, if you need a word, I'm independently doing through the arts, through professionals, having the right type of character strengths and talent that has the confidence to help me with my tentacles, because I get so passionate that the brain doesn't contain. And developing, the arts to me is the world, is everything. Creativity is everything from the most boring to the most exciting and all the in-betweens. But it's also tapping into the practical, very level-headed person in me. So it's bringing the whole person in me in order for that lost world to be less lost. And through the journey, through professional facilitators and people speak up team, fellow participants, in a very short period of time over the past year, I've got a published book through the charities and people involved. But to me, the book is my opportunity because any funding goes back to support that charity. And I think people forget, if you've got disabilities, it doesn't mean you haven't got the ability to give, and how essentially respectful towards dignity, being allowed to give and not just take. And I am capable of that, as I've seen people unconscious feedback something when people thought they couldn't hear. So I never, ever close the door completely on anyone or anything. So I don't know if that is answering in a helpful way.
Slowly now observe the way sunlight hits the window pane. The sound of stillness saturates these molecules around us. The chemistry that binds us. You press your hand against the glass, trace the outlines, making marks. The way we stare